Hi, do you consider to create a poster in order to tell others the story behind your data? This video will help you to make preparing a poster easy for you and illuminating for your audience. We assume that you get access to JMP Student Edition, a light version of the JMP analytical software which is used by industry and academia all over the world. JMP software from SAS Institute comes for Mac and Windows and provides an intuitive point-and-click interface to create stunning visuals in a short time and without the need for programming. To get and learn about JMP Student Edition, a good starting point is jump.com/student. From there, you get to a download page where you enter your authorization code, choose your operating system and download. After the download, you get access to some helpful resources, including webcasts, our learning library, and a student edition quick guide, which provides an overview about instructions for graphing and analysis. During the next few minutes, I will show you how to get started with your data in JMP and how to create, customize and export JMP outputs for your poster. For getting data into JMP, you can start from scratch with an empty data table or open a JMP data table or CSV or text files or this Excel spreadsheet. So here I use the import wizard to get the data into a JMP data table. The table has 40 rows for 40 kids from a school class, and the variables are stored in 5 columns with information about their names, age and sex, and height and weight. Variables have properties, so the column properties, and most important are probably the modeling types of the columns, and we can see them, and name has been set by the import wizard as a nominal column, while age with numeric information has been set to continuous. I can change it to a categorical type, ordinal or nominal, right here, or in the column info where you see all the properties. So you can right-click a variable or double-click the header, and then you see the data type, the modeling type and format, and many other properties per column. Also, rows have properties called row states. So now I have 8 rows selected, and I can also exclude them from an analysis or hide them from a visual output. Let me close this data set and open the same data but from the JMP sample data on the help menu. So there's also a big class data set with the same data actually, but like many other sample data sets, it has several stored analyses in the upper left tables panel. So as soon as you have the data ready for analysis, use File to get the data into JMP, and then maybe some table tools to rearrange the data, rows, column utilities. You are ready to analyze and graph the data. Let me start with the distribution platform, which looks into individual variables. So I'm interested in age and weight. So I select the variables, cast them into roles they should play in this analysis, and click OK. This is the first output, the starting point, to look into distributions for age and weight. And here you see why JMP is so smart. So depending on the data situation, you get specific outputs. On the left, for age, which is categorical, we get a bar chart and frequencies. And on the right, because weight is continuous, we get a histogram and a box plot, and quantile information and summary statistics. On context menus, we get specific options to dig deeper, which make sense in that situation. So for instance, on the left for age, we could add a mosaic plot or test for probabilities. Same context menu on the right has other options. For instance, we can add a normal quantile plot or do a one sample t-test. And only in JMP, all outputs are connected. So for instance, I can multi-select the higher weight kids, and the same kids are highlighted in all other outputs, including the data table. And for this group, we see that the higher weight kids, some of them are 12 years old, but none of them are 13 years old, what's maybe surprising. Let us look into these analyses here, bivariate, one-way, and logistic, which are all variations of the FitY by X platform, so a bivariate case with two variables, but with different modeling types. Bivariate shows a result for the continuous versus continuous case. And I use the red triangles, which are really your best friends in JMP, for instance, to add histogram borders to the plot. There's already a linear fit added to the report. It also has a red triangle where I can add confidence curves and also do some shading on the confidence band to see the confidence band for the fit. I can also add other functions, for instance, fit a polynomial second order to our data, or add a non-parametric density contour. The one-way report shows a continuous variable versus a categorical X, female and male. And here we already have the results from the means and ANOVA analysis. And we see the result for a two-sample t-test. So if you see an output like probability greater than a test statistic and then a number, this is typically a p-value. And they are red or orange if they are significant or highly significant. And if you hover over a number, a tooltip helps you to interpret the results you get. Logistic is an output for an ordinal logistic analysis, and we see information about the model and the parameter estimates. And such a table can be changed by a right click, and you can also use a right click everywhere, also on plots, to change the layout and many settings. And here I could, for instance, sort by p-value, and the table is resorted. Or I can also make this into its own JMP data table for further analysis or visualization of that data. To see how any report was created in JMP, you can always open the script submenu on the top red triangle and relaunch the analysis. And then you see the platform used and how the variables were configured. Please note that not all sample data scripts generate output due to some features not supported by JMP Student Edition. Let us look at another sample data set, car physical data with 116 cars. We are interested to explain the response horsepower based on predictors including country or turning circle. First, I color the rows by column country. So now the Japanese cars will be shown in red, for instance. My favorite exploratory tool in JMP is Graph Builder for interactive data visualizations. So I pick a variable and drop it on a drop zone, for instance, Y, and I drop type on X, and I choose a mosaic plot, and this directly tells me that most of the large cars are from the US. I start over and look into the relationship between horsepower and type. I see the data points, can switch to a contour plot or box plots, and also break this down by another variable, for instance country, and I get previews and can see which graph is telling me most. And by overlay, I have all box plots in one graph. For horsepower by displacement, we get a scatter plot. I can fit a line and ask, is this relationship depending on country? And I add country to overlay, and we see yes, it is. So the fitted line for US is different than the lines for Japan or other countries. I can even break this down further, for instance by gas tank size, and when I'm done, I click done and the graph is ready for exporting. Distribution with all variables is a nice way to explore a new data set. We see every model is represented once. That's good news, but not informative, so I remove that output. And then I choose the higher horsepower cars and look into relationships with my predictors, and I see these are not the small cars, of course. If I'm interested to find the best distribution for our horsepower data, I could ask to fit a continuous distribution or check all distributions and find the best. The best found by JMP is the log normal, which is shown visually, but I can also compare with other distributions like the normal distribution, which is now also added to the histogram. The details for the fitted normal allow me to dig deeper to ask for a goodness of fit test, and the p-value tells me that the data don't seem to be normally distributed. This is also confirmed by a normal quantile plot. Other options for graphing include the scatter plot matrix to explore how continuous variables correlate. A variability chart can be used to explore variation, for instance for horsepower, within and between groups. So now we see the variation by country and type and also the standard deviations for each group. And I could also add box plots to the graph. To share or keep any result in JMP, I can save this output as a script to the data table. This adds another script to the table panel, and I can rename it, and we will come back to that stored analysis later. To explore a classification tree for country, I can use the partition platform. So I want to explain the country of a car based on all the other information we have. And for that I split the data several times So now I did 10 splits overall, and we see the decision tree down here. And I can ask for column contributions to see a ranking of our predictors. And on this tree, turning circle was most informative to explain country, but weight and type were not informative. Back to the prediction of horsepower, I choose to fit a model to predict horsepower. And I choose all the predictors, expect the model, of course, and factorial to degree, which is 2, also adds the two-factor interactions as model effects. I choose to look into effect screening, so that's my main interest, and I build the model. So we see the horsepower, actual versus predicted data, which look good, and we have an R² of 92%. We see a summary of this fit, some other information, and the effect tests tell me that there seems to be a significant interaction between turning circle and displacement. This can be seen in the prediction profiler. So here we see the settings of all our predictors for a certain car, and on the left we see the predicted horsepower, which is 147, and the confidence interval. And for each predictor we get a trace through a multidimensional response surface, showing us the relationship between the predictor and the response. So we can see that for displacement, now we have a positive slope. So the higher the displacement, the higher the horsepower will be. And I can change the displacement, and if you look at horsepower, you can verify this relationship. But if you look at the other two predictors to the left, weight and turning circle, you see the interactions with these other predictors. I can save the model with its prediction formula to the data table. So we got this new column added. The plus tells me there's a formula on that column, and clicking on the plus shows me the prediction formula from that model. Now let us customize the My Variability Chart report to be shown on our poster. To change the layout, you can move the axis or zoom the axis at both ends. The cursor automatically changes into the grabber tool for that. Or a double click on any axis gets you the axis settings. Check the red triangle options and set what you need on your output. So I don't want the standard deviation chart, but on the variability chart I would like to connect the cell means, and I want to show the grand mean. You can also right click everywhere and change the layout. So I use this to set a background color. And for labeling, you see that the model variable already has the label flag. So that means that if I point to a certain car, I see the model of that car. And I can also fix this label, move it around, and also add a tagline pointing to the data point. I remove it again. You can also label by row. So if these first 5 cars are special cars to be highlighted on our plot, I can set the row state label for them, and going back to our plot, we see that these cars are now labeled. So you can again move the labels around and rearrange your graph. So now we see where these 5 cars are shown in the plot. The Tools menu have an option to add annotations, and for instance a text annotation. I can add 1990, which is the build year of these cars, as some additional information. You can also change the title of this output, and I name it Car Study. If you prefer some certain colors or markers and so on, you can also set them on the preferences, where you can customize the reports and graph styles. And macOS settings, so under Windows settings, you will also find the language of the jump interface. On the Mac, the jump language is taken from the system preferences in your operating system. Great, the graph is ready, so let's get it into our poster. There are basically 2 options. The first is File, Export. And here you can export the report as an image, for instance as a scalable vector graphic, or as HTML or even interactive HTML, which is HTML5. And this allows you to create interactive posters without needing jump anymore. You can also export into a PowerPoint slide deck, and then a more complex report will be distributed over several slides. The second option is a copy-paste, and for that you should know about 2 tricks. The first trick is that you should ensure that your cursor is ready to select parts of your report you want to copy, and that can be done by getting the selection tool, which is the fat plus sign from the Tools menu, or you can use a shortcut S to change the cursor to the selection tool, and later you can change it back by A to the standard arrow cursor. So I click S, and now I can pick what I want from this graph, or I can select the whole thing or just the car study graph, and that's the section I want to copy into Word or PowerPoint. So now it's selected. I can copy this, and one way to paste it on a Mac is to use a preview, and I use this app, and then I just paste the content from the clipboard, and here you see that you keep highest quality even if you zoom the graphic. So this is a vector graphic with highest publishing quality. For an Office document like Word or PowerPoint, I can paste this into a Word document, for instance, but not use the standard paste, but use a paste special. On a Mac, it's the option PDF. On Windows, it's enhanced meta file, and then you paste it. And again, this is a vector graphic you can change and resize without losing any quality. Okay, what can you do to get started? I already mentioned some online resources, including the Learning Library and the Quick Guide for Student Edition. In JMP, the Help menu offers some books, so that's the software documentation, including a reference user guide, JMP Student Edition, and a Getting Started book, Discovering JMP. There are also several tutorials, for instance to learn about how to use Graph Builder, and as I mentioned, hundreds of sample datasets, including the world demographics. Let me just run this script using Graph Builder, and here we see the birth rate in shapefiles, color scaled in green, and I can even right click this graph and add a background map to make this visual even more appealing. Do you miss anything, any feature? Another option is also to download the 30 days trial version of JMP at jmp.com/try. If you still need more help, just Google for JMP and any analysis technique and you will find videos and other resources online. Or browse the JMP user community for more resources and discussions at community.jmp.com.